So, good day everyone. We are the group 2 and I am Marvin and Anoria and I am the first reporting for today. Our topic is all about the areas of applications of Filipino psychology. So, with the aim to address the colonial background psychology in the Philippines, Psychologyang Pilipino started as a movement within psychology and the related disciplines in the 1970s that focuses on the following theme. So, ang Psychologyang Pilipino gali nagsugod na sa in 1970s. Tapos, ang ilagay na fokusan ang apat ka theme. This is first is the identity in the national consciousness. And letter B is the social awareness and involvement. Letter C in the national and ethnic cultures and languages, including the study of tradition psychology. And the letter D is the basis and applications of indigenous psychology and health practices, agriculture, art, mass media, and religion, but also including the psychology of behavior and human abilities or originated in a Western psychology but applicable to the local setting. So, ang identity in the national consciousness, amo na yung ilagi na gamit sa Psychologyang Pilipino. And the social awareness and involvement. The national ethnic cultures, languages, including the study of traditions of psychology. Tapos ang ilang base in application of indigenous psychology, use man sila sang ilang practices which is the agriculture, art, and mass media, and religion, ang nila ginagamit. Tapos ang psychology is psychology, behavior, and human abilities. Nag-originate na sila sa Western psychology. Tapos nag-applicable to the local setting. And next is the movement has three primary areas of protest. First is a psychology ang pagbabagong o isip, which is psychology of awakening. The movement is against psychology that perpetuates colonial mentality and promotes the colonizations of the Filipino minds as a stage in the development of national consciousness. So, ang psychologyang pagbabago gali nag-promote na sila sa colonizations of the Filipino minds. Tapos nag-develop nila ang national consciousness. Second is the importance and impositions of a psychology that has been developed in and is more appropriate to industrialized countries. Last is a psychologyang magpalaya or liberating psychology is against psychology used for the exploitations of the masses. So ang psychologyang magpalaya nag-exploit sa iyaka masses. Next is as a part of the indigenous psychology tradition, Psychologyang Pilipino is a belt on psychological knowledge. So, ang managaling knowledge nga ginagamit nila arose from within the culture, reflect local behavior, can be interpreted within a local frame or reference, yields results that are locally relevant. So, however, Enriquez in 1978 was quickly to point out the Psychologyang Pilipino does not advocate that foreign theories should be totally abandoned. So, Enriquez gali na na point out niya, nabalaan niya nga ang Psychologyang Pilipino gali nga wala gali advocate sang foreign theories should be totally abandoned. Uncritical rejections of anything foreign is as dangerous as critical acceptance of Western theories. So, reject na gali sang foreign reject na gali nila sang nila. Tapos ang mga foreign ni gali o mga delikado ni sila gali kay ang critical acceptance to Western theories na sila. This is Enriquez proposed that Psychologyang Pilipino knowledge can be born out of two processes. Kag Si Enriquez gali nagpropose sa sang duwa ka sekuliyang Filipino knowledge. Aman sa ang indigenizations from without and indigenizations from within. So, indigenizations from without is a more common approach is used in knowledge and technology transfer. Aman gali ang indigenization from without gamit na sila gali sang approach nga sang knowledge and technology transfer. This approach is based on the search of local equivalent for assumed universal psychology concepts or the contextualizations of imported methods and techniques in tools and instruments. A similar concept is cultural validations, the practice of validating research from systematic applications in the multiple cultures. On the other hand, indigenous from within from alive Filipino implicit psychology theories, which is knowledge cultures as a basis, or which is say local cultures as a source. Enriquez also used the theme cultures validations to refer this process. So, ang cultural validations gali, nag-practice sila sang validating research pagis na ila or ginagamit nila ang systematic. So, ang indigenous from within form a lives kuno Filipino implicit psychological theories. Tapos, ginagamit nila ang knowledge, cultures, or ginatawag nila cultures basis. So, this is the end of my report. Thank you.
My name is Ramsel G. Lubrico and I am a BS Psychology student. What are the advantages of applying Filipino psychology in the Philippines? The Psikolohiyang Filipino in the Philippines would help Filipino to recognize their personality and culture that would help them and find their own senses of belongingness and allows them to categorize themselves from the influence of Western coloners. The principal emphasis of Psikolohiyang Filipino is to foster national identity and consciousness, social involvement, and psychology of language and culture. It is thus concerned with the proper application to health, agriculture, art, and other spheres of people's daily life. This understanding of Psikolohiyang Filipino can then use to improve mental health services or therapy specifically for Filipinos. This suggests that Asians such as Filipinos lack the proper mental health services suited for Filipinos. Psikolohiyang Filipino relates to my life because understanding my culture, the way of life would provide the necessary tools to help treat mental illness and provide a concrete sense of identity. There are several areas where Psikolohiyang Filipino has been applied. Much of the early work was focused on the use of local language in teaching, research, and in conduct of various conferences and symposia in psychology. This development, in turn, inspired the mass media to use the local language in radio programs, talk show, and other official events of local and national importance to Philippine life and culture. This further led to the popularity of inviting Filipino psychologists to talk shows to give some insight on the relevance of Psikolohiyang Filipino to the various topics under discussion. Another area of application was in providing psychological help to children, especially in difficult circumstances such as children in situation of armed conflict, street children, prostitute children, etc. Pioneering efforts were made by Elizabeth Protasio Marcelino and her colleagues as the Children's Rehabilitation Center. Their program focused mainly on crisis intervention through treatment and rehabilitation of these traumatized children. It applied the orientation of Psikolohiyang Filipino by looking at the problem of the children at two levels. The first level focused on the specific needs and problems of the individual child. The second level underscored the socio-economic and political roots of the problem and their consequence on the child's right and welfare. There is also practical work currently going on the area of feminist psychology using the same principle of Psikolohiyang Filipino, social, and clinical psychologists have helped battered women under their problems in the light of the different socio-cultural condition affecting women in Philippine society. Psikolohiyang Filipino has also been applied in industry, particularly in the marketing of specific products and understanding consumers' behavior in several multinational.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rosel Perona, your reporter for the day. Today, I'll be talking about the disadvantages of Psikolohiyang Filipino. So, what are the disadvantages of Psikolohiyang Filipino? The disadvantage of Psikolohiyang Filipino is it can be used as a manipulation in every Filipino. It means, of course, due to this, pwede ta nila nga i-manipulate. Kay sang una, ang mga Pinoy, ang aton mga ninuno, of course, there are no proper education. So, dali lang gid sila ya i-manipulate sang mga foreigners or sang mga colonizers. Also, this could give unclearly information due to the fact that the Psikolohiyang Filipino is obsessed with merely being reactive to Western psychological contracts and discourse, which I conclude that the focus is highly about Western psychology and elaborate the Psikolohiyang Filipino. So it means of course that we cannot deny the fact na gin-colonize manggita sang American and Spanish. Of course, there are some traits of them nga naaton man nga na-adapt. That is why ang aton nga Psikolohiyang Filipino was being elaborate with them also. May touch sang Western psychology. And sometimes, it gives also negative impact in our behavior as Filipino. It also misinterpret also due to the language barriers and reductionist translation. So, since the Philippines has many islands, many places, provinces, of course, there are areas nga lain-lain manggid siya lengguwahe. Of course, just like in Luzon, most of language used in Luzon was Tagalog. Kung magkado ka naman sa Visayas, may ara Bisaya, may ara Ilonggo, Chabacano, whatever it is. Of course, same thing in Mindanao. May ara sila Cebuano, ka Muslim, nga language. That's why there are language barriers. Kay we are not using only one language. We are kind of people that we use as multiple languages. No? And of course, because of the Psikolohiyang Filipino, we tend to give gratitude toward our colonizer, such as the American and the Spanish. Though ginaano to sila balang gapasalamat pagkita sila kay gin-colonize nila, it's because nga, not because of them also, no? Wala ta nakakilala sang ginatawag nga religion, education, kag damo pag ito tani nga wala may namangan. So balido, instead of ginatagaan ta sila appreciation, ginapraise ta sila, no, miski nga gin-colonize ta nila, although nga nakakontribute sila sa aton sang positive things, but dako gid gyapon ang negative things nga ilang agin contribute sa Philippines. Next is our which sometimes become an insult, no, to Psikolohiyang Filipino. Yes, of course, no, nga blang Arab lang nakaka-insult tod sa feeling sang Pilipino nga mas gina-prioritize ta sila kontra sa aton nga own locality. It also we need also the validity in promoting psikolohiyang Pilipino. So kinahanglan ta pagidya sang validity nga i-promote ang aton kaugalingon nga psychology. It is misunderstood of many Filipinos and even foreigners that the psikolohiyang Pilipino are the same with Western psychology. But we only differ to the sources. So, damo, nagahambal nga ang psychology sa Philippines kag sa Western countries, no? Though, same lang sila gyapon, pero different lang ang sources. It is because naging colonized ta gani sang Spanish kag American. It is also misunderstood of many Filipinos and even the foreigners. Of course, we are not the same with them. We have our own psikolohiya that comes from our culture, religion, and in our politics that we build. Siyempre, may araman tayo sang ginatawag nga kinaiya or uniqueness sa ila. We have our own originality, no? Wala tayo nagsunod-sunod lang yan sa ila. But of course, we cannot deny the fact that we have the touch of Western psychology. It is because ganing aging colonized sa Spanish and American over several years or hundred of years no nga ginsakop ta sang Spanish. So mostly we have adapted some their traits and behavior which become nga nangin disadvantage siya sang promoting sang psikolohiyang Filipino.
Good day, this is Agnes Carbonell, BE Psychology 2A, and I will tackle about what are the challenges of the Filipino psychology in the Philippines. The challenges for psychology is that its jargon does not easily fit into the world of sound bites and opinion valued by post shares and links. Yes, Gestalt therapy or holistic care rolls of the tongue of local professionals as easily as healing and closure. They're as empty in their promises as person-centered in primary care. The danger are real. It can lead us to postpone effective care. Itong jargon is a salitang kalye or salitang balbal, which Filipino words that do not have a direct translation in English. In other words, jargon could be described as a street slang or words only understood from within a certain group. And sound bites naman, a short extract from a recorded interview for chosen its pugency or appropriateness. And it can invalidate our genuine feelings and thoughts. You cannot positively think your way out of a suicidal attempt. This thought to be excited time for mental health specific to our world and way of life. This thought to be the time when psikolohiyang Filipino leaps forward. Instead, indigenous psychology is being pushed further back. We are losing a chance to self-correct decades of a missed opportunity and it avoid the mistake of the past. Mental health is too important to be left in the hands of academic or professional, but our growing worship of self-styled psychology is alarming in our health to understand and explain difficult feelings and thoughts in a culture that largely prefers to silence them with look to popular Western levels and powerful metaphors for relief and validation. It is not enough to feel sad. Let's call it depression. It is not enough to carry anxiety, is sexier thinking of death or dying. Transient indigenous experience are commodities into Western permanence. The challenges of the Philippine psychology, ang pagsasalita ng local language or indigenous psychology. Dapat ginagamit daw talaga natin yung sarili nating lingwahe sa pagtuturo ng psychology sa mga tao or mga pasyente gaya ng may depression and anxiety problem. Kasi naman, 'di ba, mas maganda na mag-Tagalog ka kung nasa sariling bansa ka para mas marami ang makakaunawa ng gusto mong iparating na mensahe sa mga tao na ang patungkol sa mga anxiety and depression problem na nakakaranas ng ganitong problema. Mental health is too important to be left entirely in the hands of academic or professional. Yung tungkol sa mental health na mga usapin, dapat talagang isaalang-alang na lang sa mga professional gaya ng mga license na psychologist, kasi sila naman talaga ang may alam sa mga ganitong usapin, 'di ba? Minsan kasi yung iba nagkakaroon na ng self-worship na ang meaning naman ng self-worship ng psychology na ito ay extravagant admiration for or devotion to oneself or self-idolatry. So ito nagiging self-idolatry na ng isang tao, tapos na post na sa social media, merong mga mas tinatangkilik natin yung mga tanyag na psychology sa ibang bansa, yung antas ng galing nila sa psikolohiya ng sariling bansa nila, na dapat tayo ay meron din naman dapat, 'di ba? So instead na dapat na tayo ay magkaroon ng kalayaan, yung natatahimik na lang tayo kasi 'di ba mas tinatangkilik ang tanyag na antas ng kanluran. Ito naman yung psikolohiyang Filipino indigenous psychology, napakahalagang usapin sa buhay ng isang tao. Dapat meron tayong knowledge about sa mga nangyayari sa kapwa nating tao, lalo na hindi natin alam yung nararamdaman nila. Kaya maganda pa rin talaga merong mga psychologist na magaling magsalita ng local language para mas maunawaan at mas maintindihan ng mga tao dito sa Pilipinas. Ang salitang balbal o salitang kalye daw ay hindi fit sa psikolohiyang Pilipino or Philippine psychology, kaya nagkakaroon ng challenge or problem kagaya ng mga shared and post ng links, minsan misinterpret ng mga tao, kaya ito nagkakaroon ng challenge. Tapos minsan yung nakakabahala ito sa kalusugan ng isang tao, nakakapag-lead ng depression and anxiety. Lalo na yung mga posts sa social media. Hindi naman lahat yan totoo 'di ba? Siyempre, minsan ang social media is to entertainment purposes only. Hindi naman lahat ng nasa social media ay totoo. Kaya tayo din mismo na we must aware that maingat tayo. Lalo na marami ang naglalabanan ng mga hindi makatotohanang mga salita or mga hindi magandang balita sa social media. Kaya maingat din kasi yung iba nagkakaroon din sila ng trabaho sa social media gaya ng mga bashers, may mga trolls, o 'di ba? Kaya tayo be vigilant, matuto tayong kumilatis kung tama ba yung mga links na binabasa natin, 'di ba? We must vigilant sa mga nababasa at nakikita natin na post sa social media. Kaya napakalaga ng psikolohiyang Filipino na ituro sa mga estudyante, lalo na yung mga nag-aaral ng kolehiyo as a psychologist. Kaya minsan tayo mas pinapahalagahan natin yung mga post ng mga taga-kanluran. Mas gustong-gusto natin nanonood ng mga videos nila. Mahilig tayo mag-share, mag-like, mag-comment, 'di ba? Kaysa yung sa sarili nating mga article, 'di ba? Yun yung pinaka-challenging na nararanasan ng mga psikolohista dito sa Pilipinas kasi naiisang tabi yung article nila, mas tinatangkilik ang tanyag na article ng taga-kanluran.
Good day everyone, I am Rubina Flores, a BS Psychology 3A, and I'll be the one to report the topic about what are the benefits of applications Filipino psychology in the Philippines. So first, it would help Filipinos to recognize their personality and culture that would help them to find their own sense of belongingness. So it means classmates nga ang ining benefits ng gabulig ni sa aton para makilala ta kung ano ta nga Filipino, kung anong aton nga pagginawi, ang aton pagpati, kag ang aton gid nga personalidad. Kag diri man mabalaan ta kung diin kita nabilong nga social group where kita common na nga ato national or cultural tradition, practices, beliefs, ancestry, and language. Kag, for example, dari sa Pilipinas, even tong Pinoy tatanan, sari man Japon ng aton own nga pagpati, kay syempre lain-lain man kag lagyo ta nga lugar. Another example is ang Igorot, Maranao, or Ita people, may own na sila yung mga practices, same man sa aton, syempre. Kay diri gani mabalaan mo ya kung taga-Bacolod ka, kay ga-celebrate sila sang maskara. Kung taga-Cadiz ka, naga-celebrate sila dinagsa. Kung taga Iloilo ka, naga-celebrate sila sinulog. Amo na nga mabalaan mo kung diyan ka na belong group or lugar, but within lang sa aton nga country in the Philippines. And second, it allows to categorize themselves from the influence of Western colonizers. So, ang Filipino psychology, another benefit, amon isang ma-distinguish tayang aton nga selves as a Filipino sa mga ging influence ng Western colonizer. Kaya ang Western view guys, nang nag-point out ni siya sang individualism, sila niyang mga view nga nag-think nga superior sila sa iban. Kag nag-create ni sila ya resentments among non-Western people pero sa aton kag nagina-foster nila ang racism and prejudice against aton nga mga Filipino nga hindi ng Western viewers. Second, third, it can provide a lot of answers like why our own society prefers corrupt practices, why Filipinos perform better overseas. So, ari naman yan, ang gina-explain man dito isang Filipino psychology nga, ara ba lang makambal ka nga, ay, ang Pilipinas niya, basta sa politiko ng makambagid sila nga, basta ara gani, ang tao nga iban ma-engage sa politics makangambal kadya nga mga kurakot nag-practice sila corruption kay dira bala maano mo nga mas mayo ang ilang life kag dire man mabalaan nga ang Filipino nga mayo to yang ila performance sa iban nga bansa kay dire man naton bala mabalaan nga kung dire gani sa Pilipinas ang sweldo katawo ng nubo pero kung sa iba niya bansa ng dako so amo ng reason nga out of the country ang mga Filipino. Next, it moves Filipinos how to unite and feel more nationalistic. Ari naman niya mabalaan ta na iya kay if ang Filipino kabalo kung ano siya kag diin siya nabilong wala siya nag-think nga iban ang tao sa iya like atong core values nga kapwa di ba means to sa nga di ibang tao. So if ikaw nga Pilipino ma-mindset ka nga amo na wala ka naga-think nga different na sa iban, superior ka sa iban. Kag if you're a Filipino kung nag-engage ka gid sa imo yang pagka nationality nga practice ka as a makabayan kay gano kasang imo nga country devoted ka. It would help to foster psychology of language and application in health practices, agriculture, art, mass media, religion, and other spheres of Filipino daily lives. So, sa Filipino psychology, dire man matagan important siya kag nang mas lalo nga mapadevelop ang aton on language kung paano tayo nga Filipino mag-apply sang health kag mga practices sa aton like ang aton mga agriculture sa aton ang aton mga art the way tayo nga Filipino maghimo ang aton nga mass media religion ang sari-sari nga pagpati kag ang sari pa man nga pangabuhi sang tawo sa adlaw-adlaw. So that is why it is important to psikolohiyang Pilipino because this allowed us to being Filipinos to find our own identity and the best way to do this is to notice the values that our family has taught us. So importante gidya ang Filipino psychology sa aton naka-contribute gini siya dako sa aton kay dire gidya naga-teach sa aton kung ano ta nga Filipino kag ang ging tudlo bala sang aton family diri gid tayaga kaano nga Filipino ta kay gina-practice ta kung ano gid taya as a Filipino. Filipino psychology must be anchored through Filipinos thoughts and experience as understood from a Filipino perspective. So, ang Filipino psychology dapat halin gid sa aton nga mga Filipino kung anong aton nga pagpanumdum, ang aton views, ang aton experience as a Filipino. Because that what is Filipino psychology. Each group of people must be adequately understood by themselves and from their own perspective to contribute to universal psychology. So, kita as a Filipino people sa aton country nga Philippines, dapat kabalo kita kung anong aton nationality, kung anong aton practices, kung ano ging halinan sang aton nga mga languages, aton nga mga ancestry. Kay para nga mabalaan nga kita ya unique sa iban kag different yang aton nga psychology kag ang aton nga perspective sa iban nga views. As a Filipino, dapat kabalo ka man kung anong ang imo nga own native language. Nang okay man na siya nga kasang English nga language, but we need to practice sang kung ano gid ang aton nga lingwahe kay mas dira ta nga makilala as a Filipino citizen. So that is the end of my reporting, and thank you.